very good morning. You're watching Melt. I'm Ritvika Gupta. This week, we are focusing on how IBM, one of the key players in the digital transformation space, has responded to the COVID-19 pandemic and the subsequent lockdown. Anant Rangaswamy, editor of Melt, is in conversation with Dipali Nair, CMO IBM India and South Asia, to understand how the corporation has adapted to the new demands and needs of its clients. Let's get ready to melt with Dipali Nair.
Hello, Dipali.
Hi, Anand.
So good to see you.
Always good to see you.
So we are continuing our series of conversations focused on the impact of the lockdown on marketers and on brands. And we are trying to understand from as many marketers in as many categories as possible what principles of marketing are changing or bending, or perhaps they remain the same. So to set this conversation up, you're CMO at IBM, and it's a category which is got a very long sales pipeline, as in it takes months to convert from inquiry to sale. There's a lot of work involved. And then it's CapEx also. It's not something I can go to a store and buy on Flipkart or Amazon or something. So tell me, how has your role changed during the pandemic?
So Anand, just to give you a little bit of a background, I think the fact that it was a long sales cycle existed before COVID and after COVID. The fact that it was CapEx before COVID and after COVID also, right? I think what changed for us was the kind of products and the kind of conversations that our clients were having. You know, the basic stuff that we've always had, client centricity, right? In B2C, you look at client segmentation, you look at current context, you look at conversations, you look at motivations and barriers. That is true in a B2B domain also. You know, the decision making may be residing with multiple people. That's the difference. But they also have certain motivations. They also have a context, that they're involved in. I think the effort that my team and I needed to make was that we needed to find out that context very quickly. And the context changed very quickly, So for example, just before COVID, the narratives and the conversations were about growth. They were about customer delight. When you spoke about future, you spoke about a little bit farther future. But what happened because of COVID was conversations turned to resource optimization, cost optimization, cash flows, security of people, working from home, remote working, data security. And of course, it changed to the business model, which is robust against the kind of calamity or kind of emergency, that we faced. And I think that's what we needed to care about. The second thing that changed for most any other B2B, product marketer is that the number of people who were involved in the decision making on the client side perhaps went up. There was a lot of scrutiny that a CIO or a CEO himself also was facing from the board. There were a lot of conversations, that were happening at the client end. And you had two sets of products, if I may, or products or services or solutions, that they were looking at. Some they wanted to buy right away because they were going to serve a purpose, a need which was here and now. Let's say data security solutions. Let's say something which helped their, employees do remote work, right? So all those solutioning was something that they needed to buy now and here, and those happened very quickly. And there were decisions that they started looking for. So new, pathways emerged. They started looking at some of the solutions which were meant for the long term, which they had not considered before. Not for nothing, a lot of the people are saying that, COVID became the new CIO because COVID actually accelerated thinking for a lot of boards and CEOs in terms of what technology should be doing for them in future, because really digital transformation now became a must and a necessity rather than something that they really needed to look at from a hybrid model perspective. So in all this, what was changing also is that we needed to take care of our current clients. There are a lot of current clients for whom we perform services which I call essential in nature, right? And there are existing very large clients. They could be in the banking domain. They are in financial services. They could be in distribution of essential services, that are required. So, for example, country's largest, LPG cylinder, distribution, right? Now we manage the CRM for them, for example, and you needed to scale up because the pressure, was quite a bit. And that's where we had the opportunity of cementing our relationships with our current clients. The stories which I can't talk about today, but one day they will get told. We call them the IBM heroes internally. Some of our guys were part of the BCP planning of clients. They actually stayed away from families and stayed for 15 days and 20 days at remote locations, ensuring that the country's banking services were working, or that essential goods were getting distributed, or that we were all connected, because telecom companies are also our clients, right? So I think therefore it was at three levels. One was ensuring that our clients were working, with whom we have existing relationships. Second was going and servicing the needs which emerged because of COVID. And third was doing a conversation with them about how to plan for the future.
Right. The first one is apparent. The second one is interesting because it's almost a new product category. Overnight, today I was talking to somebody in advertising, and he was telling me about how overnight they had to figure out how 4,000 people in his organization could work from home. And that included purchase of software, hardware, firewalls, security. And he's saying IT rose to the challenge. They had to overnight. So tell me, there'll be lots of companies which discovered this, who may not have been thinking of an IBM solution earlier, yes, who discovered this once the lockdown hit them, that they needed to do this. Yeah. So did your pipeline of new customers increase in a surprising manner during the early days of the COVID?
So, Anand, I wouldn't want to answer that directly to say whether it rose dramatically, majority or minority. But I want to say this, that during the period of COVID, did we acquire new clients? Yes. The answer is yes to that. Which product exactly they came in, how they came in, I think is an interesting conversation that all of us marketers understand instinctively. If I trust my mainline advertising agency, right? And if I require a solution which I think is in the domain of communications and marketing, I will typically call up the CEO of that agency or the head of my account management and say, hey, listen, do you know anybody? Can you get me somebody? So I think that's a relationship that you must consider, because we are we service the current clients, which are the who's and who of India Inc., right? And if there is a technology solution that they want to look at, and if we are already servicing them, they will call us to ask us, does the solution exist with you or with somebody else? So even if they do not know about a certain solution that IBM provides, chances are that we would know about their needs and requirements. And I'm hoping that my sales team has that kind of a relationship. I think in the B2B domain, that's extremely important, because these are long-term, accounts and services that you work with, that my sales team has that kind of a relationship where the CIOs and the other CXOs on the client side, will definitely give them a call to say, hey, listen, what do you think? What kind of solution exists? And that's where the opportunities, really come about. So that's one. Number two is a lot of the referral also works, right? A CIO will call another CIO to say, okay, how are you solving this problem? You've already implemented the solution before COVID, who provided the service, how did it work? And I think referral also becomes an extremely important part of the conversation, therefore.
Dipali, in your category and certainly in your role, you use events as a large part of your marketing mix, yeah, and you've been doing it for years, basically demonstrating what IBM can do as opposed to just telling you through a brochure or something like that.
Yes.
That whole part is under stress now in the physical or analog form.
Absolutely.
So tell me how, obviously you didn't stop events post-COVID. So how did you bridge that gap?
Okay. Actually, I'm these days thanking everybody who's asking me that question because I get to brag a little. In February, before COVID hit us, the India marketing team at IBM did a fully virtual event for 3,500 people. Because in October last year, we sat down and said, what is the innovation we need to do for years to come? And we want to pilot something new. We want to experiment with something new. So in October last year, we started planning a fully digital, fully virtual event. And COVID happened. We didn't know it was going to happen. But by the way, that event of ours won the internal IBM Global CMO Award. So every market sends in entries every quarter. So it got us that, right? Now, why I want to bring that example to you is that digital events was a reality even earlier. The scale was small. What somebody needed to do was to get to a bigger scale, and that's what we experimented with in the month of February. So the pivot for my team was actually fairly quick. In terms of planning the next big digital event, we knew the points where we would trip, because we had an October to February planning cycle where we had learned all the tricks. So my team pivoted to very large events very quickly, and there are nuances, and we've learned all through. We've done 4 or 5 large events. When I say large, let's call them 1,000 plus events, in the scheme of things, right? Some were 4,500, some were 8,000, some were 1,500, some were 3,000, but we've done these large events, right? So there is a nuance and a learning with every event. The type of engagement that you do, we've learned. How succinct my speakers need to be and how we train them, we've done that. What kind of promos and social media we use, we've learned that and improved, with every event. What kind of celebrities will work with our kind of TG, we've learned that. How to do audience generation, we've learned that. And there are, tricks to that too. However, Anant, the reality is that you can't say that virtual events have replaced the face-to-face events forever. I think when we go back to normal, whenever is that, and once people have forgotten and are not afraid, and social distancing is not a concept any longer, we will go back to face-to-face events. What quantity, what numbers, I don't know, because one thing has changed. I think more and more CXOs have now become comfortable with the thought of doing online meetings, for example, right? And so similarly, I'm wondering, when small meetings need to be done, I think that's where the situation will change. When very informative, information-led conversations need to be done, even if they are one to many, I think you will find a lot more openness in people for virtual events. When a global event needs to be done, not everybody would always think of traveling now is, where I'm coming from. Where the water will find its level, I don't know. But I don't think we're going back to completely being 100% face-to-face events, like we used to earlier. I don't know if I've answered your question, but, those were the thoughts in my mind.
Sure. No, so let me ask you something so that you build on the question. What is it about an analog event, a face-to-face event, that you're not completely able to replicate in the virtual event? Now, you've done many, as you said, from 500 people to 8,000 people. So what is it that you think you're missing out on in a face-to-face, in a digital event?
Okay. While it is unfair of me to just isolate, a face-to-face event situation, because, that's not the only thing that has changed in the, world of commerce, as I call it, right? But one thing is there, which is that the sales cycle has become longer. Right now, whether that's a function of just the virtual event is unfair to say. The sales cycle has become longer on account of, a lot more decision makers and companies wanting to conserve cash flows and people taking longer to decide on, capex decisions, right? But that has happened. So that unfortunately can be also one of the factors can be that,
that could be cash flow led, or, worry about the short term.
But it's also catch-22, because I also remember in a face-to-face event, what happens is, somebody's come to an event and, you've seen a conversation on stage, and my sales guy is just there to catch hold of, let's say a client, and do a conversation. More importantly, the networking, where a CIO is talking to another CIO and my sales guy is there, and they end up having a conversation, which is like a referral conversation. And then we kind of, sweep in or swoop in, or, whatever is the term, right? Now, that congregation, which is a follow-up to a larger event that used to happen, is a little, difficult for us to replicate in the virtual scenarios, and that is definitely a longer gestation cycle. So that is the bit that I'm missing. Secondly, when somebody walked into a face-to-face event, you had them captive for a fairly longer time. So you don't have that choice any longer, because people can switch off at any moment. Some people are logging in only for an hour, although they know that the agenda is for 4 hours. That didn't happen, in a face-to-face event. So at one point of time, they would walk into a face-to-face event and would interact with, let's say, 5 different senior executives from IBM. right? Today, even when I set up a one-on-one after the event, it's chances that it's happening with one or two IBM execs. So therefore, our ability to influence decision making, I would say, has become slightly, limited.
Right. So tell me of these habit changes that you're seeing now. This is habit change at the, for example, you say more people are involved in decision making. One of the reasons why more people are involved is because they can, in a funny way. Because today you can have, if I'm buying a safety pin, I can have 100 people on a Zoom call to discuss the safety pin.
Yeah.
How much do you think that will revert to a smaller team taking decisions in a, say, a post-vaccine world?
That's a difficult one for me to answer.
Sure. So, but if you can just go blue sky and
yeah.
try and...
Yeah. See, chances are that I think a lot more of the decision making involved has also happened because there are newer types of decisions getting done.
Right.
What used to earlier take longer is perhaps taking more people now. So they would have compensated the length of decision making with, the number of people involved, perhaps, now, although, gestation cycles are longer also for certain things. But if they feel, and if there is a greater adoption, let's say, of a technology trend or a technology product, then once it reaches an inflection point and, its chances are for that decision making, maybe it'll actually become shorter, post-COVID. Not because it'll be post-COVID, but because it has gone through its due cycle, So it's almost like laptop adoption reached an inflection point where companies started buying laptops for their executives instead of buying, desktops, It reached an inflection point and now nobody debates whether it should be a laptop, or a desktop any longer. So we are also hoping and seeing those cycles. And I do think that I don't think it's a habit that will stay. But I don't think it's only on account of the fact that you can involve too many people. I think you're dealing with newer situation. You cannot predict the future. Everybody's come to terms with that. And therefore, it is about consensus decision making, I think, which is happening just now.
So let's go back to the beginning of the conversation where you said a lot of the early conversations were provoked by the challenges that your clients had provoked by COVID. For example, work from home, suddenly they had to have a solution for working from home.
Yes.
So like that, there are a lot of consumer habit change, which is causing new client problems, and they have to solve those problems. They solve it through you. For example, let's say in the auto industry, they need to be able to give all their prospective customers virtual test drives, for example.
Yes.
I'm just giving you one or two.
Yeah.
So how many of the conversations you're having are caused and provoked by new problems that customers seem to have?
Quite a lot, because when IBM is talking to a client, I think with the bigger ones, we are always doing a holistic conversation. We are part of their planning for the future. So it is not just a conversation about infrastructure or, our servers or, conversation only about cloud. It is a conversation about all these three things and more: security impacting, client experience in future. Some of them, and also remember, Anand, not all of them are on the same adoption cycle point. Some of them have done some work in these areas already and have thought about it, whereas others haven't. So each conversation is very distinct and different, and perhaps is not likened, to each other. For example, some of our clients have already worked a lot on the connected car and has launched it, but some others are still working on it. So since you took the automobile example, I want to give you a B2C example to illustrate what I'm talking about. Right now, I think the B2C clients need to rethink their segmentation. For example, if you're selling kitchen goods, somebody like me who had never entered the kitchen for 10 years has the financial wherewithal to buy whatever I want to for the kitchen, right? Has this new heightened interest in everything to do with kitchen, right? Anybody who's selling that needs to look at me, and I'm a separate segment, and ideally should be driving a very different conversation with me, not the kind of conversations that they were having earlier, right? So that is a new need that has emerged. But you always have a large number of the housewives whose lives have largely remained the same. It's just that they've spent more time in the kitchen. The conversations there may not be, different from the earlier years, So I think that's the same thing for us. There are some clients where you're part of the cycle and they were already ahead of the technology curve, and you're doing the decisions about faster implementation perhaps, or delayed implementation, depending on, what's the cash flow context. And there are some clients who did not do, let's say, a digital transformation conversation earlier, or did not do a hybrid cloud conversation earlier, where it has become front and center now, because COVID has, created those needs, in their scheme of things.
So finally, I'm going to ask you, you've been in a work from home, or rather technology supported work environment from the day you joined IBM. It's nothing new for you.
Yes.
Now, one of the things that's new for you and your team is a number of conversations you have on short-termism versus long-termism.
Yes.
Almost all IBM conversations used to be about long-termism. Suddenly you're talking with somebody who wants a solution in 3 months or 6 months or 8 months. Is that something you are facing, or am I imagining it?
No, we are facing that. So, for example, with one of the, whether it is, so we work with the government also, right?
Right.
So some of the requests that are coming from the government are POCs, which need to be done much faster because they're going to serve a purpose, differently. We worked with the government of Andhra Pradesh to create a solution which is the Arogya Setu kind of a solution that needed to be done faster, one of our clients came to us and said, we want to do free food distribution through the, some 27,000 outlets that we have, because that's a CSR activity. And you needed that to be added to the app that we run for them. So you needed to pretty much do it in a matter of days, And so our delivery teams, have gotten those kind of requests, and we have, serviced them. But to say that all requests are of that nature, no, because I think with large capex decisions, the decision makers on the other side also realize that some of the implementation is going to take time. So that's also a reality.
Right. So while I said that was the last question, I completely. How can I have a conversation with a marketer without asking what is your media consumption change?
So Anant, definitely we've gone 100% digital. We were hugely digital even earlier, but we would do, one or two print or some outdoor work earlier on. I think I've gone completely 100% digital. But I think the other bit that has happened in the media mix is that all the spends that we used to have on the face-to-face events, which had let's say a non-digital leg to it, has completely, become digital. Right. So our media mix even earlier on was hugely digital. We, for example, hardly did any television earlier on. There was a small portion of outdoor and print.
Fantastic. And of course, events.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Dipali. And hopefully a lot of people in the B2B space will look at this conversation and learn a bit. And a lot of your clients will learn a bit, hopefully.
Thank you, Anant. It was an interesting conversation. It made me, remember a lot that has happened in the last 9 months, and a lot that has changed. And it just makes you realize that we're still not over it. A lot needs to change even now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that was Dipali Nair explaining how IBM is navigating the COVID-19 disruptions. Let's now take a look at the MELT cheat sheet. Companies need to invest in deepening existing customer relationships. Smaller and more intimate virtual events are likely to become a large part of the industry even after the crisis has passed. Brands need to rethink segmentation and come up with new conversations. With that, it's a wrap on this episode of MELT. Don't forget to follow us on social media. Our handle is Ready2Melt, and stay connected with our daily MELT update on our website ready2melt.com. I'll see you next week, same time, same place. Goodbye.